weather, hot girls.
The world didn't just notice them, it couldn't escape them. The 2000s were ruled by Brazilian supermodels who turned fashion into spectacle and beauty into power. Their presence was magnetic, sun-kissed skin, athletic bodies, and a confidence that could light up any stage. Gisele Bündchen, Adriana Lima, Alessandra Ambrosio, Isabeli Fontana. These women weren't just faces on a page. They became the pulse of an entire decade. From the world's most exclusive runways to the biggest televised fashion shows, they redefined what it meant to be a model. They blurred the line between fashion and entertainment, between runway and celebrity. For years, they stood at the very center of the industry, commanding attention everywhere they went. This wasn't just a trend. It was an empire built on glamour, dominance, and the kind of presence that comes once in a generation.
We're going to take you inside a model factory. This is the place that produced Gisele, the most highly paid supermodel on Earth.
The late 1990s fashion industry had painted itself into a corner. For years, the heroine chic look had dominated. Extreme thinness, androgyny, a studied carelessness that bordered on sickness. Kate Moss was its poster child, all sharp angles and vacant stares. Magazine covers featured models who looked fragile enough to break. The public was growing uncomfortable. Fashion editors were getting bored. Designers were searching for something new, something that felt alive again. The 1998 Alexander McQueen show became the turning point. The runway was deliberately flooded with water. Models had to navigate the slippery surface in towering heels. Most approached it cautiously, tentatively. Then came Gisele. She didn't just walk. She commanded that treacherous catwalk with absolute confidence. Her healthy curves, her golden skin, her ability to make difficulty look effortless. It was the antithesis of everything fashion had been selling. The industry took notice immediately.
Gisele is just one of those rarities in this industry where she's smart. Not only is she drop dead gorgeous and has one of the most incredible bodies I've ever seen.
Gisele has a body that you've never seen before. It's kind of like drop dead gorgeous.
Here was vitality where there had been exhaustion. Here was strength where there had been fragility. The pendulum was ready to swing, and Gisele Bündchen would be the force that pushed it. Vogue doesn't just report on fashion, it creates it. So when the magazine devoted a 1999 feature to Gisele titled The Return of the Sexy Model.
This was the cover, and it was the return of the sexy model, which was, I never considered myself sexy, but I was very happy that they chose me to represent this moment.
It wasn't just an observation, it was a decree. The era of heroine chic was officially over. Anna Wintour and her team had found their new muse, and she came from Brazil. The article celebrated Gisele's curves, her sun-kissed skin, and her ability to project both high-fashion sophistication and accessible beauty. This wasn't just about one model, it was about a whole new aesthetic. Sexy was back, healthy was desirable. The bronzed, athletic look that Gisele embodied became the new standard. By January 2000, the transformation was complete. Gisele appeared on the covers of both American and British Vogue simultaneously, an almost unprecedented honor that signaled her global dominance. These weren't just magazine covers, they were coronation portraits for the new millennium's first supermodel. Rolling Stone went even further, proclaiming her the most beautiful girl in the world on its cover that same year. A fashion model on the cover of Rolling Stone. That's when you know you've transcended your industry. Gisele wasn't just changing fashion, she was becoming a cultural phenomenon. The shift was seismic. Agencies started scouring Brazil for the next Gisele. Designers rethought their aesthetics. The waif was out, the bombshell was in. Victoria's Secret in 2000 was more than a lingerie company. It was building an empire of fantasy, and they needed the right angels to sell that fantasy. Enter Gisele Bündchen, who in 2000 signed a $25 million deal with Victoria's Secret, one of the largest modeling contracts in history at that point. The brand knew what they were buying, not just a model, but a new definition of desirability. The numbers were staggering, but Victoria's Secret knew what they were buying. Not just a model, but a new definition of desirability. The 2001 Victoria's Secret fashion show changed everything. When it aired on network television, 12 million Americans tuned in. 12 million people are watching models walk a runway in elaborate lingerie and angel wings. This wasn't fashion anymore. It was entertainment, spectacle, a cultural event. And at the center of it all were the Brazilians. Gisele commanded the runway from 2000 to 2007, but she wasn't alone. Adriana Lima had joined Victoria's Secret in 1999, starting a run that would make her the longest-serving angel in the brand's history. Nearly 2 decades of dominance. Where Gisele brought sunny glamour, Adriana brought smoldering intensity. Her blue-green eyes, her signature blown kisses to the camera, her ability to make every walk feel like an event. She became as essential to Victoria's Secret as the wings themselves.
She has incredible eyes and, a great body and this kind of beautiful, shiny, straight hair. And she has such a great young spirit.
The show became appointment television. Millions watched these Brazilian women stride down runways in fantasy bras worth millions of dollars, wearing wings that weighed more than some models. But they carried it all with such confidence, such joy, that it looked effortless. They weren't just modeling lingerie, they were selling a dream of confident, powerful femininity.
She's just gotten to be a very hot model in a very short amount of time.
The cultural impact was immediate and profound. Suddenly, every woman wanted that Brazilian glow, that confident stride, that combination of approachability and unattainable glamour. Gym classes focusing on Brazilian butt workouts exploded in popularity. Beach fashion shifted to match the bold, body-conscious style these models embodied. The Brazilian bikini wax became a phenomenon in salons across America. A small but telling sign of how deeply this aesthetic had penetrated mainstream culture. Gisele and Adriana were the vanguard, but they were far from alone. By 2004, Alessandra Ambrosio had joined Victoria's Secret as an official angel, bringing her own unique appeal to the brand. Where Gisele was glamorous and Adriana was intense, Alessandra was the approachable girl next door.
Alessandra Ambrosio.
Alessandra Ambrosio.
Alessandra Ambrosio.
Guys, get ready. Brazilian beauty, Alessandra Ambrosio.
Alessandra Ambrosio. Alessandra Ambrosio.
If the girl next door happened to be breathtakingly beautiful and from Brazil, Alessandra's rise was meteoric. In 2006, she became the first spokesmodel for Victoria's Secret's new pink line, designed to capture younger consumers. That role gave her a distinct place in the brand, reaching an audience that the main angels didn't directly target.
I think to a woman to appeal to another woman in a bikini or wearing lingerie is quite tricky.
This wasn't just another modeling gig. It positioned her as the face of a new generation. She would go on to walk in 17 consecutive Victoria's Secret shows, a record that speaks to both her longevity and her appeal.
I think with Adriana and Alessandra, we've been lucky enough to work with 2 of the greatest models in the history of the world.
Meanwhile, Isabeli Fontana was conquering a different realm entirely. While her compatriots dominated the commercial modeling scene, Isabeli proved that Brazilian beauty belonged on the highest runways of Paris and Milan. Her career had started with controversy, appearing in a Victoria's Secret catalog at just 16.
We're very young, we don't think that way, so we just, whatever, let's just make money and be, have fun.
But she transformed that early notoriety into serious fashion credibility. By the mid-2000s, Isabeli had appeared on more than 50 international Vogue covers, campaigns for Versace, Valentino, and Dolce & Gabbana. A spot on American Vogue's coveted Models of the Moment issue in May 2004, alongside Gisele and other rising stars. Isabeli wasn't just a pretty face. She was a chameleon who could embody any designer's vision while maintaining that essential Brazilian allure. The wave kept coming. Ana Beatriz Barros, with her striking green eyes, became a Sports Illustrated swimsuit favorite. Isabelle Goulart earned her angel wings from 2005 to 2008, famous for her incredible physique and the workout routines that maintained it. Caroline Trentini brought graceful athleticism to editorial shoots. Fernanda Tavares, Ana Claudia Michels, Michelle Alves, each found their niche, whether in high fashion or commercial work. Even in high fashion's most exclusive circles, Brazilians dominated. Raquel Zimmerman became one of the most sought-after editorial models of the late 2000s, accumulating 37 Vogue covers despite looking nothing like the typical beach bombshell stereotype. Her success proved that the term Brazilian model had become synonymous with excellence regardless of the specific aesthetic. By the mid-2000s, agencies weren't just looking for models in Brazil. They were conducting nationwide searches, setting up camps, treating the country like a goldmine of modeling talent.
It's become a big business, and model hunters are finding them very, very young.
And they were right. Brazil had become the world's most important exporter of models, and the supply seemed endless. The fashion world had always been divided into two camps, commercial and high fashion. Commercial models sold products to the masses. They did catalogs, advertisements, and accessible campaigns. High fashion models walked couture runways, appeared in editorial spreads, and embodied artistic vision. The two worlds rarely mixed. A Victoria's Secret model walking for Dior? Unthinkable until the Brazilians arrived. Gisele shattered this barrier completely. On Monday, she might open Marc Jacobs' show in New York. On Tuesday, she'd be shooting a Victoria's Secret campaign. Wednesday would find her on the cover of Vogue Italia. Thursday, she'd be in a Dolce & Gabbana advertisement. She fronted 11 consecutive campaigns for them from 1998 to 2003. This wasn't just versatility, it was a complete redefinition of what a supermodel could be. Anna Wintour herself marveled at this phenomenon, noting how remarkable it was that Victoria's Secret's most famous angel was also fashion's most in-demand model and a genuine celebrity. This triple threat status was unprecedented. Previous supermodels had been famous, but they usually stayed in their lanes. The Brazilians refused to be categorized. Adriana Lima exemplified this boundary-breaking success. Yes, she was Victoria's Secret's longest-running angel, having opened their shows in 2003, 2007, 2008, and 2010. But she was simultaneously a Maybelline spokesmodel, starting in 2003, appearing in global campaigns that had nothing to do with lingerie. She walked for Versace, Armani, Louis Vuitton. She appeared in Super Bowl commercials, the most expensive advertising real estate in the world. That 2008 Super Bowl ad for Victoria's Secret, featuring Adriana, was watched by tens of millions of viewers. A lingerie model in the Super Bowl. It was the ultimate sign of mainstream acceptance and cultural dominance. She wasn't just a model, she was a brand, a celebrity, a cultural icon. Alessandra Ambrosio proved equally versatile. Christian Dior, Giorgio Armani, Ralph Lauren, the biggest names in fashion wanted her in their campaigns. People magazine named her one of the 100 most beautiful people in the world in 2007, placing her alongside Hollywood's biggest stars. This wasn't just modeling success, it was celebrity on a scale that transcended the fashion industry. The ability to move between these worlds, to be taken seriously by both Valentino and Victoria's Secret, gave these models unprecedented power. They could command higher fees because they brought both prestige and commercial appeal. They could choose their projects because everyone wanted them. They had achieved what every model dreams of but few accomplish: complete control over their careers. Money talks, and in the 2000s, it spoke Portuguese. The financial success of Brazilian models wasn't just impressive, it was revolutionary. These weren't just beautiful faces, they were business empires. Gisele Bündchen's earnings were staggering. In 2007, she earned an estimated $33 million. $33 million from modeling. To put that in perspective, that was more than most Hollywood actors made that year. She wasn't just the highest paid model, she was one of the highest paid women in entertainment, period. Forbes became obsessed with tracking these earnings, and year after year, the story was the same: Brazilian dominance. By 2014 to 2015, the concentration of wealth was almost absurd. Gisele topped the list with $44 million in annual earnings. Adriana Lima came in with $9 million. Alessandra Ambrosio with $5 million. 3 Brazilians controlling the top of the modeling economy. But these numbers only tell part of the story. The real power was in what these earnings represented. These models weren't just getting paid for photo shoots. They were getting equity deals, launching their own product lines, and becoming brand ambassadors with multi-year contracts. Gisele had deals with over 20 companies simultaneously at her peak. She wasn't just modeling for these brands, she was a business partner. Adriana Lima's earning power was equally impressive. By 2006, she was already the world's 5th highest paid model. By 2014, she was consistently second only to Gisele year after year. This wasn't a flash in the pan. This was sustained dominance over more than a decade. Her Victoria's Secret contract alone was worth millions annually, but that was just the beginning. Maybelline, Versace, Donna Karan, every contract added millions more. Alessandra Ambrosio's business acumen matched her modeling success. Beyond her modeling fees, she launched her own swimwear line, Allure by Alessandra. She understood that modeling was temporary, but business was forever. By diversifying her income streams while at the peak of her modeling career, she ensured her financial future extended well beyond the runway. Even models who weren't household names were earning previously unimaginable sums. Isabeli Fontana's L'Oréal Paris contract in 2011 was reportedly worth millions. Ana Beatriz Barros's Guess campaigns commanded six-figure fees. The rising tide of Brazilian success lifted all boats. This financial dominance had ripple effects throughout the industry. Agencies began investing more in scouting in Brazil, knowing that discovering the next Gisele could generate millions in commissions. The Brazilian modeling agencies themselves have become powerhouses, with Ford Models Brazil and Elite Model Management Brazil gaining significance comparable to their New York or Paris counterparts. The money also changed how models were perceived. These weren't just pretty faces or clothes hangers. They were businesswomen, entrepreneurs, brands unto themselves. When Gisele negotiated her contracts, she wasn't just discussing day rates, she was discussing equity, creative control, and brand alignment. She treated modeling like the business it was, and the results spoke for themselves. Every era has its end, and even the Brazilian bombshell phenomenon couldn't last forever. But what an ending it had. In April 2015, Gisele Bündchen walked her final runway at São Paulo Fashion Week. It wasn't just a model retiring, it was the end of an epic. The fashion world watched as she took that last walk, tears in her eyes, the crowd on its feet. Brazilian media treated it like a state occasion. The international press covered it like the retirement of a great athlete. That same year, 2015, marked a kind of last hurrah for Brazilian dominance. Gisele, Adriana, and Alessandra were still the 3 highest-paid models in the world. Think about that. 15 years after Gisele's rise began, Brazilians still controlled the summit of the modeling world. That's not just success, that's dynasty. But changes were already underway. Social media was democratizing fashion. Instagram models were rising, building their own followings without traditional gatekeepers. The very concept of the supermodel, the untouchable, unreachable icon, was becoming antiquated in an age where everyone could be an influencer. Victoria's Secret, the platform that had made many of these models household names, was struggling too. Viewership for the fashion show had been declining since its 2001 peak. Cultural attitudes were shifting. The very specific type of beauty that Victoria's Secret promoted, thin but curvy, invariably tall, predominantly white, even among the Brazilians, was increasingly criticized as narrow and exclusionary. The brand tried to adapt. They brought in more diverse models. Laís Ribeiro, an Afro-Brazilian model, became an angel in 2015, finally bringing some racial diversity to the Brazilian contingent. But it felt too little, too late. The cultural moment had passed. In 2018, Adriana Lima walked her final Victoria's Secret show after nearly 2 decades.
Everything started from me here in New York. So I started here and I finished here.
The emotion was palpable. She had been with the brand since she was 18, growing from a teenager into a woman, from a model into an icon, all on that runway. Her retirement felt like another ending, another nail in the coffin of an era. The following year, 2019, Victoria's Secret canceled its annual fashion show entirely. Declining ratings, shifting cultural values, criticism of the brand's narrow beauty standards, it all came together. The platform that had made Brazilian models into global superstars was gone. Alessandra Ambrosio had already seen the writing on the wall, retiring from Victoria's Secret in 2017 after 17 years. She pivoted to other ventures, recognizing that the industry was evolving and she needed to adapt accordingly. Smart business, as always. The end of the Brazilian bombshell era wasn't sudden. It was a slow fade, like a sunset. By the late 2000s, the modeling industry looked completely different. Diversity wasn't just encouraged, it was demanded. Body positivity movements challenged the very foundations of traditional modeling. Social media influencers commanded fees that once only supermodels could demand. But the legacy endures. In the early 2020s, a wave of Y2K nostalgia swept through the fashion and social media industries. Suddenly, TikTok was full of edits celebrating 2000s supermodels. Young people who weren't even born when Gisele first walked for Victoria's Secret were obsessing over that era's aesthetic. The Brazilian bombshell look, the golden skin, the beach waves, the confident stride, became aspirational again for a new generation. The models themselves have evolved beyond their bombshell origins. Gisele became an environmental activist, using her platform to advocate for sustainability. Adriana continued modeling but on her own terms, choosing projects that aligned with her values. Alessandra built her business empire. Isabeli continued working, proving that longevity in modeling was possible if you adapted. They had all transcended the very category that made them famous. They were no longer just Brazilian bombshells. They were businesswomen, activists, mothers, entrepreneurs, but they would always be remembered for that golden decade when they ruled the fashion world absolutely. The Brazilian bombshell era of the 2000s wasn't only about lingerie and glittering runways, even if those images remain the most vivid. It marked a shift in how beauty was defined, how global the industry had become, and how models could evolve into celebrities and business leaders. Gisele, Adriana, Alessandra, Isabeli, and the others didn't just model clothes. They projected confidence, health, and sensuality to audiences worldwide. They proved that a model could belong to both high fashion and the commercial mainstream, could be both aspirational and approachable, both Brazilian and universal. Yes, the era carried its limits. The waif was replaced by the bombshell, another narrow ideal. Brazil's diversity wasn't fully represented, but even with those criticisms, the decade holds its place as the last time supermodels felt larger than life, when a walk down the runway could stop culture in its tracks. Those women didn't just step into fashion, they shaped it. They defined covers, shows, and contracts that set new standards. They built empires from what began as images. That golden era has passed, but its legacy endures. Because when people remember supermodels, when they think of beauty fused with power, of glamour that commanded the world, they still think of the Brazilian women who ruled the 2000s. They weren't only part of fashion. For a time, they were fashion.